Hello, if you're new, welcome to my channel. I'm Khadija. If you're not new, welcome back, and I'm happy to have you here. So you're probably wondering, she came out of woodwork again. What's up? Where's she been? Life, and the market's crazy, inflation, eggs is expensive. So I've been staying a little low key, but that's no excuse. I should be a little more consistent here, but that's neither here nor there. Today I wanted to talk to y'all about something a little personal. It's personal for me because I don't like putting my business out there, but I figured this is something that I can share with other women who have questions, who aren't sure. And you're like, girl, what's the something? Just get to the point. What is the something? The something is my egg freezing process. Yes, I froze my eggs about 2 years ago, and I wanted to just share that experience with women who aren't sure where to start. Like, what was my experience like? I'm just gonna walk you through that, like why I did it, how I felt through the process. There's so many, I'm so surprised, but there's so many women who aren't just like, they don't really know, like, is this available to me? Can I go through my insurance? Blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to just put it out there, have the conversation, because I've been receiving a lot of questions when I do proactively share with other women. So I figured, let's just talk about it here before I get started, because we know how YouTube roll. I am not a medical professional. These are just my personal experiences. These things happen to me. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. So I just wanted to put it out there that this is all my experience. So let's start talking about it. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. If you want to have more like a private conversation, feel free to DM me. I know some people just don't want to like have their face and name in the comments, so feel free to reach out to me, and I'm very transparent. I am that girl. I will give you the TLDR. But yeah, let's start this conversation. So the first thing I know folks want to know is like, why did you do this? So back during COVID in 2020, I was like back and forth from California to New Jersey, and then I ultimately decided to come back to Jersey. And at that time, I was 32, right? I'm 34. I have no problem. What? Wait, it's 2023. Yeah, I'm 34 now. All right, because COVID birthdays don't count for me. Anyway, so I was 32 at the time, or turning 32, and in your 30s as a single woman, if you start to get, yes, I was very much so single and still am. I have questions about like family. Of course, your family is asking like, oh, when you have kids, like, what's your relationship status, blah, blah, blah. And I was getting older. And thank God I have my aunt and her best friend. They both work in the medical field. Her best friend is actually a GYN. And they started to ask questions like, have you considered freezing your eggs? And I said to myself, I never thought about that. But my single self in this moment is COVID. Like, no one's meeting up. Everyone's sheltered in place. Time is ticking. Life is going. So, like, right now, you're not really dating. And some of y'all was making it happen. And I did end up having a relationship during COVID. But, of course, look, I'm single now. So, here we are. I did kind of consider, like, maybe I should freeze my eggs. Now, I'm blessed to have an employer that provides insurance services specifically for IVF and egg freezing. So I started to do my research in summer of 2020. So ultimately, that's what led me to decide whether I wanted to freeze my eggs. I'm getting older. I'm not dating anyone at the time. Time is ticking. The eggs get older. Like, they don't stop. Like, we don't stop. So I did my research in the summer, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So, of course, I spoke to my insurance provider. One thing I can say is if you're not sure if your job covers it, just check your insurance to see. I'm happy that my job was able to cover it with the services through Progyny, and that's one of the services that I'm very familiar with. So I was like, okay, let's do it. I spoke to other peers at work who also have already been through this experience. Now, one thing that I really appreciate is there's a lot of transparent women in my workplace. So we were able to have like conversations. I would just bring it up. They were like, yeah, I did it, and I cried and all this stuff. So for me, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna be emotional wreck through this process. I hope not. But I was like, I have a good support system. let's do it. So I decided in New Jersey to go to IRMS. They're located in Livingston, New Jersey, under the St. Barnabas healthcare system. My aunt works for that healthcare system, so she told me about it. Reached out to them, did an intro with the doctor in October of 2020. By October 2020, I was in a relationship. So, but it's an early relationship. You're not thinking, well, some of us crazy enough to be like, girl, this gonna be my husband. He don't even know it. He gonna be my baby daddy. Like, you know how we get. We already planning futures, and we just met the man 2 days ago. But yeah, I was dating someone at the time, but it still didn't stop me to say like, well, maybe this is it. I will no longer consider freezing my eggs. So in October, I decided to meet with the doctor on virtual, of course, because of COVID. She talked to me about the process. She asked me questions as to why I'm doing it. So like just to vet to make sure you're mentally prepared and everything to go forth with this experience. So I went to see her, I want to say it was early October when we met. I went to see her for my first ultrasound in late October. So the ultrasound process is pretty much, to me, how I describe it is like a GYN checkup. They all up in there. Like this whole experience, they're gonna be all up in there. I'm telling y'all now. But we'll get into more detail about like the actual like egg freezing process and the ultrasounds and the checkups and the blood work. I did, after meeting with them, before meeting with the doctor in person, I also went to my primary care doctor just to get some blood work, make sure everything good. Now, also want to note that this was in October. Early November, I had already scheduled to have a breast reduction. So in November, I went through the breast reduction process. So I won't say delayed, it was intentional, but I decided to do that first, heal, and then do my egg freezing. Your girl was thriving in COVID, okay? Because like, I know y'all know folks was getting all types of procedures and stuff, and they was coming out of COVID looking like totally different people. For me, I was going through this personal journey of like family planning and considering my future, but also I was having back problems and stuff. And I'm like, when I was in California, these things was thinking. They really were. And I was having like, issues, and I was in bed rest and stuff. So I also decided at that time, girl, get a breast reduction. It's those things, they'll be fine. Like it was for my health, and I just felt so uncomfortable carrying a lot of weight. So I first did that, and then in April of 2021, see, as you can see, the timing is so the COVID time just really messes you up. But I have notes here because I did want to like make sure I had everything correct. So April is when I started the egg freezing process, like the egg retrieval process. In March is when the doctor prescribed me the medications. I will show you pictures of all the medications that I had to take. And to be honest, in that moment, I was a little nervous because like I never gave myself needles or anything like that. So I was a little freaked out, but Superwoman Auntie, she plays no games. Like she works in the medical field. She like, girl, get over it. You can do it. It's nothing crazy. Like just stick yourself. So of course she'll say that. She stick people all the time. So I remember one day I went to her house. I got all the medications in March because I was going to start the first week of April. And she's like, just do it. So I remember like just closing my eyes and saying, this lady really wants me to jab myself in my stomach with this needle. I'm going to pass out. But I did it, and it wasn't as bad. But I think as I was going through that process, emotionally, I started to question like my future. Like, so I got all this medication that I showed y'all, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm really about to do this. In the midst of just having a breast reduction, deciding to go through this egg freezing process, I also decided to move. Like, don't ask me why I do the most, but I do the most. And I manage well, but I need to stop. So I just moved in March as well to an apartment in Jersey, and I live alone. So keep that in mind. So I had to do these shots alone. Like no one was gonna come to my house and do it for me. So this is how it went for me. Early in April, I went to an ultrasound. They were doing ultrasounds to check my ovaries, like at first, twice a week. Twice a week, they would go make sure the ovaries look good. And then as you start taking the shots, I think I took like twice a day, maybe 3 to 4 different shots. Um, you would go, or oh my God, the hardest part about this was going in the morning very early, like 4 or 5 a.m. I would wake up and go to the facility to get checked, like the ultrasound checks. I had a total of 9 within a matter of 2 weeks. The first week was 2 a week. So when I started the shots, they wanted to see how the eggs were growing and responding to the medication. And then the second week, oh my God, I was getting up every day. Imagine getting up at 4 o'clock every day. Your hormones is like going through something you've never experienced before. And you're just like, this is a lot. I was tired and I was still working. I was working from home, thank God. But it was tiring. Now, I know the curiosity of it all is like, what was your emotions like? So I've had women share that like they would just randomly cry in the middle of work meetings or just like be super emotional. For me, I remember like when I first started them, the first 2, 3 days, I was like, oh, I feel okay. But then I started eating hot Cheetos for breakfast. And I was like, girl, why are you eating hot Cheetos for breakfast? I DoorDash 7-Eleven hot Cheetos and a Coca-Cola. I remember that, and that is not like me. So I was just like eating really weird foods. I wasn't emotional at all. I would have the Cheetos, I would eat pickles, I would just eat weird stuff. Now, by week 2, I noticed that I started to get really out of breath and my stomach started to get bigger. And I was just like really heavy and tired. And I just kept saying to my mom, like, I feel so fat. I feel so uncomfortable. And she's like, you'll get through it. You'll get through it. And I'm like, no, this is so tiring. Like, I couldn't even walk anywhere. Like, I was so full and heavy. And by week 2, the doctors, when I went to, like, I think my 6th ultrasound, you're like, your body's responding really well. Now, this varies by women. Some women, you're able to retrieve a lot of eggs and they're mature enough to be frozen. So on average, when I did my research, it said about like, you can retrieve like 6 to 8 mature eggs to be frozen. So they were like looking in the ultrasound, they're like, wow, they're hiding and like your body's responding really well. And in my mind, I'm like, I just want these things out because I am tired of being out of breath. I work out a lot. I'm very healthy. So for me to kind of be like, restricted to exercising, like you couldn't exercise, you couldn't do any like crazy workouts. Like I tried to walk the treadmill, like I tried to do little things to keep myself active. But I said, Khadija, this is just temporary. After the retrieval, your body will reset. But those 2 weeks was just like 1, tiring, 2, I was full, I was just heavy, but I wasn't like overly emotional. Again, everything is different for other people. I've had people tell me stories, and I'm like, whoa, y'all crazy, but I get it. The time, I did say like the time, it typically takes 2 to 3 weeks to do the retrieval. My retrieval, after I went to ultrasounds like days in a row, they actually reached out to me to come in early to do the retrieval process. So let's talk about that part. I'll talk about my results as well as like how I felt after the procedure. So I went in on a Wednesday morning. I had to wake up early in the morning to go to the facility where they do the retrievals. It was right across the street from the actual fertility clinic. So I went early in the morning. You can't drive yourself because they do put you under local anesthesia. I probably said that wrong. If I did, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a hard word for me to say sometimes. And so I went in. I'm not new to this. I just got a breast reduction like a couple months ago. I know how this goes. So I went in. Of course, they tell you to put a robe on, and and you lay down. They put your legs into the little like leg hold. I don't know what to call them, but the same thing in your GYN until you put your legs up and scoot to the end. Literally the same thing. Um, and then they knock you out. And I remember before I went to sleep, I said to the workers, I was like, "Oh, I know how this go," and they like, I've never met someone so positive about this experience. I'm like, "Yeah." So just to let y'all know, I did YouTube this experience, and it was so funny. They're like, "Why would you do that?" I was like, "I was just curious to know like how the retrieval process works." And this may freak y'all out, but the retrieval process is literally like they take this very long needle. It's very long, right? And they insert it at an angle through the vaginal wall, and it goes to your ovaries where it sucks out the eggs. So I watched that, and I wasn't freaked out because, just to let y'all know, I also watched breast reduction videos before my breast reduction. I know, don't ask me why I do that, but I'm just curious. So I told the anesthesiologist, like, yeah, I saw like videos on how it happens, blah blah blah, and I'm just ready for this journey. Like I feel like after this I will feel so liberated. So I'm excited to do this. Now the pain I experience after, if I do, like I'm gonna just, take medication. I'll be fine. So he was like, "You're so positive. We're so happy we met you today. Like you've made this such an enjoyable like experience so far." So knocks me out. Wake up about maybe not even an hour after the procedure's over. So what they do is after they retrieve the eggs, they check to see if they're mature, and then they call you to let you know out of all of the eggs that they retrieved, how many they're able to store. And that's the part where you're kind of like, I hope this is successful because you're not sure. Like no one really knows until they're retrieved. And I was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And they called me and they were like, "Okay, we were able to retrieve 26 eggs and 21 are mature." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." They were like, "Yeah, this was a really, really interesting case. Like it's very rare to see like these type of results. You should be happy with them. That means you have multiple chances. Like if you want to go down this route to, try to conceive this way." And I was like, "Okay, all right." Like, and in that moment, I just like, now my future, I can decide if I, decide to go that route. I have multiple chances to do it, or if I conceive naturally. And if I conceive naturally, here's the question I had to ask myself too was, well, what do you do with those eggs? But in a moment, I was like, you know what? I'm chilling now. 32, froze my eggs. They're stuck in time. I can live my life until I'm ready. Like, I mean, just to let y'all know, if you can't tell, me and old boy already had broken up. I said I was single and I'm lit. So I was like, I'm good. Like now is the time for me to just take a breather and just focus on living my life. And when it is time, or if I want children, I will decide if I want to go that route with or without a man, because you can do IVF service like treatments with a sperm donor, or conceive naturally if I can. And that's another thing that I think people don't understand, is that just because you are able to create eggs doesn't necessarily mean you can create life in your own body. So what if I have complications having children? I can get a surrogate. Or so those are things that like I had to consider during the process, but I was so happy to hear that I had that many eggs frozen. And my life continued. I'm now 34 and I'm okay because I know that if I want to, I can go down the route of having children without a significant other. And most recently, my mom did ask me that. She said, this was like a week ago, she said, "At what age do you decide if you want children or not? Like, with or without a man. I was like, with a man, I can't determine that. Without, I don't think I want to do that. She was like, I was just curious. I know you have the eggs frozen, and I know you could do it without someone. I'm just curious, like, what age do you say, actually, I'm just going to go forth with this? And I had to explain to her, like, it's not me deciding that I want to have children and alone. It's just that it's precautionary in case I do decide. Right now, if you ask me if I want children, it's up in the air. But some days I get the little baby fever. Other days I'm like, I don't care. So for me, it's like I just have options and I'm prepared for it. So that's pretty much like where I am now. I'm still not sure if I want to do it alone. I may meet someone tomorrow. But it was one of those experiences where I felt super liberated and happy to do it. If you have the means to do it, because I know another question that has come up is like, well, how much does it cost? And just based on research, it's from 8 to 10 grand. I guess it depends on the doctor and your circumstances. Again, I had insurance that helped pay for it. There is a yearly fee to store your eggs. That's also covered under my insurance. So I would say, like, I know a lot of families, like husband, wives, or, people who are together do decide, like, if they're having trouble with having children, they go down the IVF route. And this is pretty much a part of that process. So it does range between like 8 to 10,000 based on my research. Again, it's different for everybody. But if you're one of those women like me who just aren't sure and you have the means to do it, I personally would say do it. Just do it. There's nothing you are gonna lose by doing it. I feel like I have a sense of peace. But it's not for everybody. You really have to ask yourself, because as you're going through that process, you're going to feel a lot of emotions, and you're going to have uncertainty, and you're going to think about your future and what ifs and the whatnots. And you really just have to have the mental capacity at that time to just go forth and go through it. If it wasn't for my family, my mother, my aunt, other women around me, my friends, like, I probably would have struggled. There were times where my mental was just like, I don't think I could do this. And am I a loser because I'm doing this alone? Like, why do I have to do this alone? Like, alone is as far as like not having a significant other. But I did have moments of just like sadness. So you do need to make sure you are like mentally ready, or even have a therapist as you go through that experience. But I'm so happy I did it. I'm so happy. I am. And my mom, she just blurted out, because my 21 grandkids, I've been like, please stop saying that, because that's not how it works. But I get her intent. But I'm so happy I did it. And I would not have changed that experience. And I wouldn't have changed the breast reduction experience either. But yeah, I wanted to share this because there's so many women out there that are in my age group or a little younger, and they have no clue. Or you may just not have no clue where to start. Yeah, I wanted to share this experience with all of you. Again, if you have questions, if you're not sure, if you just need a holding hand as you go through this process, comment, DM me. I'm willing to help you answer any questions you may have. Thank you for listening to my story today. Again, you got to do what's best for you, y'all. But don't forget, as always, you know what I'm going to say, to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all soon.